I'd like to welcome to the show one of the stars of Amazon Prime's film Sound of Metal, Paul Raci. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you so much for coming on today. Sound of Metal is about a heavy metal drummer's life is thrown into a free fall when he begins to lose his hearing. You play Joe in the film. What attracted you to this project?
Um, the script was very well written, and the character of Joe was originally written as an Iraq War veteran. So, and me being a Vietnam veteran, I thought, well, we can make that switch if you want, So we did when Darius found out. But I just felt very close to the character, close to the community. Growing up with deaf parents, I'm what you call a CODA, a child of deaf adults. And that's a whole nother subculture of deaf culture, if you will. So, and so I just felt very close to the role. And as it turns out, was able to just, pull off the work that we did in the film because of Darius, the great director, storyteller, and of course, Riz Ahmed was just a fabulous partner to have in working in scenes together.
Obviously, with your involvement with your parents, did Darius kind of lean on you a little bit on certain aspects of the film?
Well, yeah, I the first thing I told him was, I hope you're going to have some deaf people involved in the production itself, because they have the deaf people or the deaf community, they have a saying, nothing about us without us. And he had already had some advisors on the set. Riz had been working with a tutor to learn sign language. And whenever I could, if I saw something that was going awry as far as the interpretation on the set, because you have interpreters on the set, of course, he would lean on me a little bit. As far as also, he was just great all the way around. If I wasn't comfortable saying a line that he had written, he said, well, I'm not Shakespeare, how would you say it? Or he was open to improvisation on the set, and using sign language as we did that a little bit throughout the shooting of the film.
One of the things that kind of stand out to me is how the story is told through the eyes of the viewer as well, right? For me at home, I talked a little bit off the air about how I grew up with a sister that is also deaf, and understanding that community is very underrepresented in the world of film. So for you, how important is this film to that community?
Well, it's every film that's made is important to that community because they've been misrepresented for so many years, and they're tired of it. So just the fact that we have a deaf drug community at the sober house in the film, they love the fact that you're showing deaf people as not saintly. We have lives just like everybody else. We have foibles just like everybody else. So they like that part of it. But they also, it's just like any other culture. They don't see themselves being portrayed on the screen. That's not their world. There are deaf accountants. There are deaf criminals, deaf lawyers. But that world is not projected on the screen. And when it is, it's usually a hearing guy that's doing the role. So there's even a movement, believe it or not, against what I did in the film, because I myself am a hearing person. And Riz is also a hearing person playing somebody losing his hearing. Looking at it from the deaf aspect, historically, the way they've been stepped on and shoved aside and not consented about or even met with about what's being portrayed on the screen. So they're angry about that, and they have a right to be. They want to see deaf actors play, deaf characters. And so every time this happens, they get up in arms. And as you can see, the rest of the cast of the film, that is totally from the deaf community there in Boston, in the area of Boston. So that's authentic. It just, then you start getting into casting problems and things and all that. But I'm just telling you, there is a movement in the deaf community. They've had enough of it.
Rightfully so. I mean, it is a very, like I said, even it's a very underrepresented. Growing up like that, it's, going to the movies was always different with my sister. You know what I mean? They would have to make sure that they could accompany what in order for her
Hard.
to enjoy the film. And not every theater had the capabilities, right?
Right.
You could only see certain films. You can only,
So your
so
sister, you could see her being very isolated from popular culture. That
absolutely,
hurts
it does.
because she's living in the middle of popular culture and she can't go and enjoy it with her brother, you know.
Exactly. And for me, I told you the story a little bit off the air, but with my sister very recently, it really hit home. And when I watched Sound of Metal the first time, I didn't know that my sister was going to get the cochlear implant, and she did. And then hearing her voice for the first time, she got to hearing my voice for the first time, and hearing her kid's voice for the first time. It's a whole different learning experience. But not everybody has that capability. You know what I mean? Not everybody can.
Yeah, it's different for everybody. So the experience that Ruben has in the movie is not the experience everybody has with cochlear implants.
Right.
That's it, but you have to understand also, and without ruining anything, if you haven't seen the movie, uh, Ruben, the drummer in the movie, is an addict, and he's looking for that quick fix,
Yeah.
and he just rushes headlong into it. Now, your sister, when she got hers, she did them one at a time, correct?
She only got the 1 year done. Yeah.
For 1 year.
Yeah.
This guy goes, he's such an addict. He gets both of them yanked down there right away. And that's not how it's done normally. Usually you try one and then you do the other one. But he's really looking for the quick fix. And the result is what happens, you know.
There's a quote that really sticks out to me in this film that you deliver. There's several different scenes where you and Riz are kind of really at each other. You're not really at, but he's really, as you said, he's trying to get that fix. He wants, in his head, he's trying to get better. But there's a line that's delivered. It's important around here that being deaf is not a handicap and not something to fix. What does that quote mean to you?
Well, that's a great question because I got a great answer. Because what it really means to me, I grew up in Chicago in the 50s. At that time, there was no technology, no messaging, no captions, just black and white TV with The Fugitive on, and no captions. Nobody, the newscasters are just yapping, and my father had no idea what was going on. My parents were deaf, and my father felt oppressed, and his friends felt oppressed because there was no communication with their boss even. Nowadays, we've got the ADA, where you can demand your rights, and deaf people know how to go and fight for what's theirs. Well, this is a whole nother world. So, in other words, when I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, deaf people were still fighting to get a place at the table. Now, in 1989, they demanded at Gallaudet University, which is the only deaf university in the country, they always had a hearing administrator there. They demanded they have a deaf president. And from then on, the attitude has shifted and changed to, I'm not the one that's handicapped. You're the one who can't speak my American Sign Language. You're handicapped. How about that? The only thing I can't do is I can't hear. I can do anything else. So that, to me, when Joe says that, he said, we're trying to fix this, pointing up to his forehead, not this. There's nothing wrong with us. And that is the overriding deaf cultural message that they deliver amongst themselves, and they spread it out as much as they can. It's almost like a militant. I used to call him, my mom was like a deaf panther, I called her, because she wanted to have her rights, So it's that kind of a thing, deaf and proud. Don't fix me. And Joe, who becomes deaf later on in life in the Vietnam War, and being an addict himself, an alcoholic, jumps into that philosophy head first. He just dives right into it and is very militant about it. And that's his advice. So, because I've had other interviewers, this one guy in France who was really interesting. He goes, well, what is wrong with trying to fix it? And I was like, nothing. This is just one story, one guy's attitude, and it comes across very strongly that he's very pro deaf culture.
I'm sure for you, when you watch it back, one of the most beautiful ways that Marder tells the story is when he first starts learning the sign language, there's no subtitles.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
as a person that has been able to hear their entire life, you watch that back, and obviously it's a little bit more personal for me, but watching that, it's like, wow, that's filmmaking, right? It's making it personal. It's making you understand what Riz is going through.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what he's doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. He's a great storyteller. I love it.
a little bit better. What was it like working with him throughout this film?
Well, the really cool thing about the film is that Darius shot it in chronological order. So everything went from just the way it happened. So meeting Riz, here I am. They've been shooting this film all this time, and then I arrived, and so we had kind of the same thing that was going on in the trailer where they made us up was going on film as we went along. We were getting to know each other. So that was kind of cool. I didn't know him, he didn't know me. So I had to come on with my Joe thing right away as soon as we sat down. And I'm meeting him for the first time. And so all I can say is I don't know how you can shoot a film any other way except for chronologically in order. So that's what's going on, you know. Just remembering how he did that was the best, because everything was right in the same order it was going to be, including the very last scene, which that day it decided to rain of all days. It was beautiful sunny days out there in this farm there. And then the last ominous day, we wake up and it's cloudy and raining, and it was just the coolest experience. It really was.
So when people watch Sound of Metal, what do you want them to take away from the film?
Well, I do like the fact that they're getting to see deaf culture, and that it is a culture, a proud culture, and it's got humor, and it's got everything that hearing culture has, you know, but it is a culture. So I'm glad they get to see that. I want them to know that there's a lot of good deaf actors out there. And when you asked me what attracted me to this script about, you know, way back there, the thing that's occurring to me now is I also liked the way Joe talks about God and the kingdom of God. And because I grew up a Roman Catholic, I was an altar boy. And I've been just trained to know that God is out there somewhere up in the clouds, way up there. And if I pray, concentrate good enough and do this, and, you know, but as I got older, and by the time I hit this role, I've had this philosophy that God really is within when Joe says that line, you know, that's where it is. That's where God is, man. It's right there. That's the kingdom. Those moments of stillness. And if that didn't get me, I thought, God, this is me. This is how I think. I don't go to a God out there. I go within and bring it to the without. So I've been praying for a long time for a role like this to come along. I'm a character actor. I've been doing theater all my life. And all of a sudden I get this kind of role. And I've been, you know, praying, if you will, from the within. And it came to the within, to the without. And that didn't come up from up there. If you get what I'm saying. But I mean, we can disagree about all that, but that's when I knew. I said, this guy is me. That's how I think. So that's where the kingdom is.
The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about before you go, I love the sign language videos that you do for all of the music videos. How did?
Oh yeah, you saw those? Oh, cool.
Yes, of course, man. I've seen so many different ones that you've done. Can you give us a little bit of backstory, how that started, what, you know, and stuff like that?
Well, you know, I have a Black Sabbath tribute band out here in Los Angeles, Hands of Doom. And I'm the lead singer, and I do everything with a headset on, and I do it all in sign language. So we have a very big deaf following that comes to all these rock clubs that we do. But I've been doing that kind of thing. I've been a singer in other bands when I got out of Vietnam. I came out and I was always in a cover band. I did Bowie and Aerosmith and Ted Nugent and all that kind of thing. But I was always, my mother used to love music. She lost a hearing at the age of 5. So she bought me my first guitar. She sent me to my first 2 Beatle concerts when I was in high school. She bought the tickets. When I came back, she made me tell her the whole thing, how it went, because she still remembers music from when she was 5 years old. Um, you know, in 1956, Elvis Presley made a movie called Love Me Tender. It's a black and white, I think it's just a movie with Elvis Presley. And she took me to see that movie. There was no closed captioning at the time. I sat next to her and I signed the whole freaking movie to her while we were looking up at the big screen with my head turned like this so she could understand what was going on. That was the first time I was ever in a movie to see a dramatic adult themed story. I think I was 9 and relaying this whole story to my mom. Oh my God. So I always wanted to do music for her so she could get some of our culture, Beatles songs, Elvis songs. And then as an older guy, I started doing bands. And then when I came out here, I was looking for a band and I ran into this Black Sabbath band. Sabbath lyrics are just so prolific and so cool in American Sign Language, man. Deaf people love it. It's weird. And the band loves it. And it's really showy. And so that's what I'm doing. Anyway, so you can, online, that's just stuff that I was doing just for the fun of it. But it's good doing it in person too, because we'll be at a rock club like Petey's place in Tarzana. And there's 40 to 50 deaf people from the ages of 30 to 65, even younger than that show up just to watch the Sabbath show with all these other head knockers, so it's headbangers, I mean.
Yeah.
So, that's fun. I love doing that.
It's awesome. It's so cool to see. I would love to sometime be in person for that because just watching some of the videos and I love your passion. You know what I mean? Is that something important to you to try to translate what you know for what's familiar?
Yeah, because it's kind of like because there are a lot of videos out there, and I applaud anybody that tries to do it. But sometimes when you're doing rock, like an Aerosmith song, for example, or even a Led Zeppelin, there's a lot of emotion that's in there, and you can't just sign a song. You got to show what is going. Where's the adjective? How is this being portrayed? Is this a happy song? Foo Fighters, they're insane. That insanity has to be shown, facially and body-wise, not only with just signing the song. So that's my big thing, is showing the emotion of what's going on with the Foo Fighters song is tremendous work. That's unbelievable, but you just can't sign it. You can't just phone it in. And that's the challenge with any rock and roll song, and then depending on who the artist is. So, that's the thing. Portraying that's not an easy task.
Paul, thank you so much for your time today, man. I really do greatly appreciate it. The film is Sound of Metal is available on Amazon Prime now. Please watch it. Paul, you're fantastic. It's a great movie. Thank you so much.
My pleasure to be with you, Ricky. Man, it was fantastic.
Thank you so much, sir.